Hello, Paul Hamilton here for iPad Monthly. Today we're looking at mind maps and looking at how we can use it in regard to summarising text and looking deeper into books and literacy and those sort of aspects. So let's jump straight into Poplet here. We're going to use Poplet as our mind map, and I'll make a new Poplet here. Let's call it Matilda. We're actually going to look at a kind of a book study today on Matilda. We can select a colour there and make it so. And what we're actually going to use Poplet for is to, I guess, visualize things a little bit more by using some images to really prompt students in regard to their thinking. I think one of the things with mind maps sometimes with kids that struggle with collecting thoughts and organizing their thoughts is it's not as visual as it should be. So let's make the middle one the main concept, which is actually the name of the book, Matilda. And we might actually bring in a graphic here. So I'm going to open my library. I think I've got some books here in regard to Matilda. Let's put her there. Let's say done. And then we've got an actual picture of Matilda there. So now with Poplet, we can actually branch off. And so if you haven't seen the different types of I guess areas that we go to with this mind map, please have a look at above and actually look at what a mind map is. It's very different to a concept map. Today we're going to look at some different settings. So the first thing we might actually do is just put in here and look at the characters in the Roald Dahl story. If you haven't seen Matilda, have a look at it. It's great. So we might actually have the characters, and then branching off the characters, we might actually list those characters. So we could actually bring in a picture that I've just had a quick search. One of the characters is obviously Matilda. So we'll put Matilda in there. So as you can see here, we're getting very visual in regard to developing it. We might bring in another character. So another character in here I've had a look at is the nasty teacher there. So we'll bring in her character. And we could bring in the dad and the mum. We could bring in the actual nice teacher in Matilda. We could bring in a range of different things. But what we actually want to do now is actually we want to look at developing that concept. So underneath Matilda here, we could say she loves to read, and we can actually put in some of the personality traits and some different things about Matilda. We could say that she's actually, as she develops along, she's a bit of a risk taker in regard to her personality. We could say, talk a little bit about her family life and that she's really oppressed and she really is encouraged, but she has a real love of learning. We could put in there as well. And what we're actually doing is developing a mind map about the book, but we're also looking at the visual aspects. And I think these visuals for kids, and especially boys, really helps in regard to the stimulation of ideas and actually getting them as a bit of a prompt to writing. So we've got character development there, and we could actually have another character coming off. If we go back to the central theme, which is actually the book, we might talk about the actual plot. So we've got the plot there. If we come back over here, we could have another thing that actually looks at the actual setting. So we might have the setting, which is actually in a school. Let's see if we've got a picture to actually match that. I think we've got one there that's in a school situation. Oh yeah, that looks good. And so if I actually just kind of zoom out a little bit there, you can see already that we've actually got, and I can spread those out a little bit so you can actually see the character development and so forth. So we've got the plot, the setting. We could also bring in the themes in regard to the book. But I love the fact that Poplet allows us to get a little bit more visual in regard to our mind mapping and the making connections and that sort of thing. Once again, if you haven't seen Poplet before, you could actually do some drawing. So that actually you could actually do some drawing in regard to a scene or a plot or a scene from the book. Or you could actually do that in a different app, say, for example, Drawing Pad or Procreate, and actually bring that in as well. So it's just a really great way, I think, Poplet, of getting mind maps actually together, but making it a little bit more visual and actually doing a real great summary of a book or something else, a different storyline that we can actually bring in, and students can actually represent more visual, but also bring in the text as well. So that's just a really quick tutorial. If you haven't used Poplet before, I use it an awful lot to do different tasks. But I think it's just a really great way of actually getting kids to visualize things a little bit more when they're collecting their thoughts, responding to text, or any sort of schoolwork. Okay, Paul Hamilton here for iPad Monthly, signing off.